So, hello, and today is March 22nd, 2020. It is a Sunday, and I am Pam Gallagher. We have Midwest School of Astrology. I have a private counseling business. I think everybody knows who I am. So, I've been at astrology 50 years this year. I've done a lot of other things, and astrology has not been my only course of action, course of life. I want to talk today, and we're going to go to charts, and I'll talk a little bit about this period of time. But I believe that we're in a big initiation period. I believe that we are in a time of transformation. I believe that many astrologers for a very long time have talked about 2020, 2021. We knew that there were a huge group of planets making a very strange pattern in the sky, and I can tell you that many of us, including me, really didn't know how to read that. We hadn't seen it before. We didn't have any reference to it. All we knew it was going to be big and it was transformational. I think every one of you and myself, I do believe that we came to the planet at this period of time in evolution to be here for the change into the Aquarian age. I have said that many times. You all have heard me say that. I believe it with all my heart. And I think this is it. I mean, I think this is the beginning of this more serious transformation. I've spent my time online this week, having more time than usual, to read all the reports on the coronavirus and all the different doctors and all of their opinions, from the ones who say that this is a world crisis to others that say this is a fake, this isn't true, this is political, they're making it up. What I can tell you is that the social consciousness of the planet is changing, and that nobody can make up. I believe that from a higher level, this was brought about to create change, to bring us to reevaluate and to stop. And we'll talk about Saturn today. And Saturn is the planet of limitation, contraction, and to stop, where Jupiter is the planet of expansion and going. And so I'm not quite sure what's happened here or why somebody maybe has got a speaker on, but let me turn off the speakers just in case. Mute. No, I need to disconnect speakers. See if I can do it. Okay, so whatever that was, let's go to, this is on January 12th of this year, we had a major planetary alignment, and everybody talked about that, and it was Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Now let's talk for just a moment, because all of you heard me say some of this. When we go, Earth goes around the sun, and the moon goes around Earth. Hang on, I'll answer her. So Saturn, moon goes around, every 28 days. Mercury and Venus travel with the sun around Earth. We practice a geocentric astrology. Mars has a 2-year orbit. Saturn has a 29-year orbit. Uranus, 84 years. Neptune, 147, 48, 165. Pluto, 245 to 248 years, depending upon who you ask, and which cycle I'm talking about. Nonetheless, those are the general numbers. So, Pluto only moves 2 degrees a year, and Saturn tends to move about 7 to 9 degrees, and then it retrogrades back over those degrees and moves forward. So Saturn's going to go through a sign every 2.5 years, where Pluto's there for 20. So do your math in your head. This last year, in January, Saturn conjuncted Pluto. Now it does that somewhere between 32 and 38 years every, depending upon how fast or slow they're moving, what part of the elliptical orbit is oval, it's not round, the speed changes. The last major Saturn-Pluto was around the AIDS virus. And so we have tracked, astrologers have tracked back the Saturn-Pluto transits, and we've done that in class all the way back to the 1700s. But the last time that Saturn-Pluto conjuncted in Capricorn was at the time of Martin Luther, when he declared in 1518, excuse me. This is now, Saturn and Pluto coming together, and I went back and looked at all the thing, but to find, and this was then, and here is now, that Saturn-Pluto started. So Saturn conjunct Pluto, we consider that to be a major environmental time set. It is a point of transformation. What's happening now, since as Saturn approached Pluto in December, is that Jupiter and Mars have now entered Capricorn as well. And Capricorn being the sign, it's a cardinal sign, it's an earth sign, it's a sign of initiation and and Pluto is the planet of transformation. We know on the earth in a time of spiritual transformation. Now, we didn't understand what that meant, believe me. So if I were to go back and I would move back the planet Mars, I could go back a few days, and Mars was sitting right with Jupiter and Pluto on the 20th. The 20th was our ingress into Aries, when the sun comes up over the horizon, over the equator. And so that's the point of zero Aries every year, when the sun heads north and hits the equator. We just had that. It's called an ingress in astrology. It sets a timing for the whole year. So for those of you who know some astrology, we have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Now we have Mars. We've just had Mars hit Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of expansion. Then Mars is hitting Pluto. Actually, if you'll notice, if we go to today, Mars is hitting Pluto as we speak. So I did... one of the gals asked me online, did I choose? Well, I knew that Mars was hitting Pluto today. Mindy, if you can hear me, if you can, man, my phone. So we have Mars hitting Pluto today. Pluto is transformation. We are at the point, we are at the peak. We are in this peak of this. Mars takes 2 years to go around. So every 2 years it's going to make this circle. So it just hit Jupiter. It hit Pluto. Today it's going to hit Saturn. And so Mars has just hit, will hit Saturn on the 1st of April. And Jupiter is coming to Pluto. We're having all these, I may have my dates wrong here because I don't have my notes right in front of me. What the point is this whole week, it hits Pluto on Monday, and Saturn, it hits on the 30th, I guess. March 30th, Mars will hit Saturn. Mars will come up and hit Saturn. Between, as you know, this last week and the 30th of March, we are in the peak point of this, of where it's becoming visible. Now, I know what all the medical and physical tests are. I can watch the television just like you all. Let's talk about what I think from a spiritual perspective. To have 4 planets, heavy planets, all in the sign of Capricorn, a cardinal energy at this point in time. Many astrologers back in 1970, they were making big predictions about this period of time because of this configuration. There are other things that are occurring with that. It's interesting because on March 9th, last weekend when we had to decide whether to come, we had a huge, the fear level on the planet was so intense I could hardly breathe. The full moon involved the sun coming to Neptune in the sign of Pisces, which is sensitivity, spirituality, and fear. And so brings me to the point. We are people at a point of choosing between fear and faith. This is a time we are moving into the Aquarian age. The Aquarian age is ruled by Uranus. The sign of individuality, the sign of inclusion, the sign of correlating together, coming together as a group. But isn't it interesting that what we've done is they've brought the whole Saturn, this whole Saturn-Pluto, Pluto being transformation, Saturn being contraction, has brought everything to us. Who would have ever projected that? So, this Pluto transit will not, now the Pluto transit won't leave for quite a few years, so you can forget that. But what the bottom line of what you're thinking is, when is this over? And I would love to tell you that on April 7th, when Mars clears Saturn and moves on, and Jupiter has completed Pluto, conjuncted Pluto, and moved on, that we're done. However, I don't think so. There is, at the end of the year, on December 21st, 2020, on the winter solstice, transiting Jupiter will conjunct Saturn. You can bring it up. Maybe the picture is more. So there it is. Jupiter, Saturn. December 21st, 2020, it'll be 3:16 p.m. in Washington, D.C. Jupiter, Saturn. Now, this has been by many heralded as, quote, the entering of the Aquarian age. I mean, that's a metaphysical, metaphorical statement. However, we are in a transition. We are seeing it on a physical level, because when we go back to today, I promise you that anybody that has studied knows that Mars, Pluto, and Saturn all relate much more to the earthly, grounded, physical world. So where's the transformation got to occur? On a personal level. So between now and December, we have some very intense things happening. I wanted to go back quickly. For those of you who are watching or have done astrology or understand, when the sun, at 0 Aries on the night of the 19th, almost midnight on the 20th, because of leap year. For the United States, this is our ingress chart, and it focuses the United States for this entire year on home, patriotism, our land. And so it says we need to focus on us. And the second house rules money and possessions, but it also rules our value systems. And I believe that that's what's being tested. I believe that that's where we're supposed to transform. I believe that this heavy, heavy Capricorn influence, that sign you see as Capricorn, is saying, what are not only your money and your resources and take care of yourself, but what about your values? What about your ethics? What about your self-worth? And so what about the individual, which is moving in, and even the moon is in Aquarius for the summer, for the Aries ingress for this year, for the entire world. This chart is the chart of the ingress of the sun for the entire world. Now, when you put it different longitudes and latitudes, you will get different houses. But this chart, the moon will still be at 13 Aquarius, 33, and that's a core issue of Aquarius. There's one other piece in here that I had not studied as consistently as perhaps I should. That didn't occur to me. I will tell you that the week of the full moon, when the stock market went really crazy, those 2 days transiting Venus was with Uranus and Taurus. Taurus rules money, it rules the market. And Uranus is an unstable energy. And Venus was with it, and Venus rules money. And it was quite interesting. It wasn't just that. It was the full moon in Virgo Pisces. It was Mercury stationing for a longer period of time, even than normal, during those same 2 days. And what it did, Jupiter's involved in Jupiter's expansion. Jupiter, when it gets carried away, is extremes. So I invite each one of you, let's analyze what we're doing here. This is about self. We have to answer for our behavior during this time when we leave here. So stop, pray, anchor the light every single day, hold space for the planet and the people you love, go the extra mile, try to be kind. I've been online, and the anger and the judgment is frightening to me because it creates negative thought forms in the universe. Please try to give people that are having very difficult decisions to make the benefit of the doubt, that they're working 16, 18 hours a day and truly trying to do the best they can. Let us not fail this Capricorn test of initiation. Let us do the moon in Aquarius. Let us do the group humanitarian higher good thing. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we depart, because I know time-wise we don't have that much time together today. The Chiron is the wound of the soul. So Chiron is not, it's an asteroid or a centaur. It is not a planet, but it was discovered in 1977 and has been marked by astrologers as indicating the wound or crisis point of the soul. There is another point in the chart that we usually don't always include called Lilith. It's the dark moon. It's the shadow of the emotional self. And someone had mentioned to me, were you aware that Lilith and Chiron are traveling together? They're not only, and so they are, and were last weekend when that lunation hit and made the world crazy, the Virgo Pisces, on the 9th. It was all exactly square the nodal axis, which is the spiritual axis of the planet, at 4 degrees of Cancer Capricorn. So what does this mean to those of you who are not, quote, big astrologers? It means that there's this wounding of the soul that's being shown, and we're seeing it. And I don't think that it's an accident that all this has come together at the same time. As I told you, if you go back and research, you can go back even to the 1800s when they were writing about this incredibly intense pattern. Notice the nodes are an angle. They are where the moon's and sun's orbits come together. These nodes are not planets. Everything is within it. Not only is it within it, it's within 120 degrees. So we are called, it's what Mark Edmund Jones called a bundle in the chart. It's an intense energy. So we have this extremely intense energy. Now, as Venus pulls out, it will begin to wane. Are we out of the woods? Are we out of the lesson? No, we're not. But the intensity is starting to spread out. I would only pray that intellectually that we're starting to understand that this is not just about health. This is not just about the physical body. This is about our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. That's what we're doing. And so those of us here who are awake, I will tell you that I truly, truly, in all of my heart, believe that those of us who chose to be here at this period of time chose to be here for the birthing of the Aquarian age. I always thought that it would be a challenge, but I didn't know what it would look like. Well, here we are. So we've got 2 years before Saturn leaves Aquarius, but it's just entering. Saturn, by the way, Saturn, our earthly planet of responsibility, structure, tradition, boundaries, stability, consistency. Saturn is the one who says, halt, be responsible, what are you doing? Saturn is sitting at the 29th degree, the last degree of Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. It's in the very last degree of the sign that it rules. It's been traveling here for 2.5 years, calling to us to become responsible, to pay attention. I don't know how well we've done it. I don't even know if we've gotten it yet. But Saturn, coming week, moves into Aquarius. Actually, where is the transit? Has Saturn gone yet? Saturn's in, that's what I thought. So in fact, I think it was last night. Saturn has now entered Aquarius. We've been waiting for this for 2.5 years. Does this mean it's over? No. Saturn's going to go up to 2 Aquarius, come back to 25 Capricorn, go back up. So it's going to, we are in this process of learning the lessons of Saturn, structure. And actually Saturn is isolation. Saturn is aloneness. And so Capricorn spend a lot of time quite often alone. We will notice that Lilith is starting to pull off from Chiron, thank you, God. So I wanted to share with you, so this Lilith Chiron was something squaring the nodes, is something I really had not gotten the depth of. I had no idea that we would actually feel that. But what it's done is bring out our own crisis point, and Lilith is the shadow. Dark moon Lilith. You want to Google it, you can reel it. It's a point. It's the point in the moon's orbit between its apogee and where it is. It's halfway. It is the shadow point of the moon, and the moon rules our emotions and our feelings. So it's our internal peace. So there it is, and there's the wounding. So this is the piece I had not anticipated, reflecting and shadowing out everybody's crisis the way it is. So the next question for you is, and we have a few minutes, is how long? How long does this last? How long are we going to be trapped? Let's see if I can find, here it is. I ran a timeline in the software for the heavy transits. What I did was include just Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars are considered to be personal planets. They move very quickly. Mars goes around, it's the slowest, it's 2 years. But once we get out to Jupiter and Saturn, who are the social community, earthly socialization planets, now we're talking about the world, and we're talking about a more intense impact. So I ran this from Jupiter through Pluto. Now, Jupiter's coming up to hit Pluto in April, July, and November. Here is the expansion. Jupiter rules expansion and blessings. It also rules extremes. And usually when you get the first hit of a planet, you're going to get its most extreme energy. So I believe that we are in this extreme position of the first hit of Jupiter-Pluto. Hopefully by the end of June and July, we will have, and quite frankly, I think it depends on how long this lasts, is how well we do as human beings. And then by November, Jupiter-Pluto makes its last. By this time, I expect us to have rolled out new plans. We have transformed at this point. This is extreme transformation. This is modify your transformation. This is victory in your transformation, hopefully. Hopefully that's the way this is going to fly. So the other thing that's going on, we have all this that just started, and I showed you the chart, and I told you that many of us had we knew it was big, we knew it was intense, but I didn't know it was going to be as personal it was going to be. So I said, God. Jupiter will conjunct Saturn on December 21st, 2020. Jupiter and Saturn conjunct every 20 years. It's called the Great Conjunction in the world. And when you've watched movies and you've seen the Great Conjunction, they talk about it's this planetary pattern. Jupiter, it's real simple. It's math. Jupiter has a 12-year orbit and Saturn has a 29-year orbit. They come back together every 20 years. For the last 200 plus years, they've been joining forces in the Earth element. And so all through the timing of the founding of the United States of America, it has been in Jupiter-Saturn conjunction has occurred in one of the three Earth elements, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. This particular Jupiter-Saturn in December is at 0 degrees of Aquarius, the first degree of Aquarius, an air sign, and we are moving into this is, many astrologers said, the marking of the new age. Believe me, the age of Aquarius does not start in a day. It cracks me up when people say to me, well, when is the age of Aquarius? I'm like, are you kidding? When is night and day? It's a shadow. It's a somewhat of a, so this is December 21st. It's on the winter solstice. So The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction has followed historical changes in society, and many, believe me, historically, if you go back and study astrology 3,000-4,000 years ago, they marked the Jupiter-Saturn. It was called the Star of Bethlehem, the time of Christ. It was the great conjunction on the horizon at sunset. If they would travel toward where they could see it, if it was in the daytime, they couldn't see the planets. So they had to watch for it to rise above the horizon at sunset. And it was the marker of the new leader, the Jupiter-Saturn. It was also a much greater time. There wasn't just a Jupiter-Saturn. We get one every 20 years. However, it was one of the great markers. And here we are with the Jupiter-Saturn in conjunction with everything else. So this was December, and you can see that Jupiter and Saturn were at 22 Capricorn. This is considered to be the world point in astrology. And so it's a very sensitive point. So they say when things hit 22, 23 Capricorn, they're at the world point. So you'll notice back in January that Lilith and Chiron were not together. It's not until now when we get to the ingress and this week that they're all together, and this was all in Capricorn on Friday night, the 5th. So I think we peaked in our crisis time. I think that we have until December. I think by June, at the midpoint of the Jupiter-Pluto, we can only pray that as Jupiter, hits Pluto, those 3 transits back and forth over it will bring this Jupiter spiritual, bring the spiritual transformation to us that allows us, Saturn, to take responsibility for Aquarius, our own selves, our own individuality, and our community, not just ourselves. So to answer your question, who knows? I wish I had a crystal ball. I'd love to be able to tell it all. But let me say to you, as we leave today, that the 2 things that I would ask you all to do, I can, maybe before we do that, I will do, here's the United States chart. This is the United States on July 4th, 1776. Let me put this. The ingress for the United States on March 20th, basically, depending upon where you are. That's a moving target. But when the sun, so what about the United States? Where is this Pluto-Saturn? Okay, so we've got, the United States has the sun in Cancer, moon in Aquarius, Sagittarius rising. You'll see that Pluto is coming back to Pluto. The United States is getting ready to have our Pluto return. So are we beginning our transformational dance of who we're going to become? Who do we want to become? I see that Mindy's keeping you updated there. An ingress chart is for the first day of spring. There are 4 ingresses a year on the cardinal points: spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, and winter ingress. December 21st. And the Capricorn winter ingress, winter solstice, is when the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction occurs. And the fact that it's at 0 degrees is a critical degree. So there's a lot of opinions around that. So what I'm going to tell you is that we do have Mars and Jupiter just approaching. Saturn's not done with Pluto in the U.S. chart, though. We are going to continue through into the fall as Saturn goes back and forth over the Pluto in the United States chart. Transformation, deep transformation. And so as a leader of the world, we have some very deep Pluto traces to make as to how we respond. And so when I go back to the spiritual implication of all this, keep in mind that the United States has Sagittarius rising, and we have Neptune on the midheaven. Those are both very spiritual. We as a country are a spiritual country. We have a strong spiritual core. We were independents who came and wanted, because we wanted the freedom to make our own choices. What is a spiritual call? A spiritual call is calling for unity on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels, all four. And so we are a spiritual country, and we're based on Neptune, which is the planet of spirituality. And so we need, Pluto is transformation. Pluto is depth. Pluto is intensity. Pluto was discovered during the time that we had the big crash of 1930 and we had the atomic bomb. Pluto is power and intensity. We are in a Pluto transit in this country, and we need to transform, and we need to make good choices about what we want that to look like. So we need to hold the space for our country and the planet. So what I'm going to ask each of you to do this week, and I'm doing it every morning when I get up, and every night before I go to bed, I'm sitting quietly, I'm visualizing our beloved Gaia, the planet, and encircling her in pink light and filling her with light and calling to the angels of light to clean and stabilize and hold her solid so that we can be more loving. Every time you get angry, every time you find fault, I am capable, I'm guilty too. Catch yourself and try to restate that, reframe it in a positive way. Try not to be judgmental. Every time we do that, we send out negative thought forms that create a big wave of dissension and stress on this planet. I promise you, energy is real, and it creates balls, and it creates spiraling situations. And we do have some effect on the planet. So hold the space. If you start to see, call the angels, anchor your light, call for the white light, call for the angelic kingdom, wrap the planet in pink. Do what you can. What if, just what if, each one of us got one other person to also comply, to participate? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Come join me. I promise you, every night at 10 o'clock, I will be sitting and I will be visualizing. And I invite you to come and join me in that. Or in the morning, whenever you get up. I'm on vacation, I'm trying to sleep in. So you do it when you wake up, because I don't want to be up at 6 o'clock. Try not to knock on my spiritual door, would you? Let us go back. Hold the space, pray, be kind to one another, contact people you can help. You've heard all that. But please, don't go into judgment. Judgment is the misuse of Saturn. And this is a Saturn lesson, people. I promise you, this is a Saturn lesson. And we've got until December to get graded on how well we handle responsibility, duty, commitment, judgment, restriction, fear. So keep in mind, we're being graded. We all asked to be here, and we all wanted to be here on the planet at this time. Nobody said it was going to be this hard, but we are not done. Between now and June, ain't gonna be pretty. You can see these planets. You got Mars, Pluto, and Saturn. So try to be happy. Try to find something to do. I don't care if you color. I don't care what you do. Find something that makes you smile. I'm cooking with my grandkids. I'm teaching them to make all kinds of fun things that I haven't taken time to make in years. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also doing some reading. And if you guys can, maybe I'll be doing some charts next week. That'll be okay. I'll be ready by next week. So, for now, I bless you. I wish you well. If there are major changes, watch. We may do this again next Sunday. If anybody's interested in that, I can get on and give you some updates planetarily and what the new moon on, oh, by the way, we do have a new moon on March 24th, which is, I guess we should close with that because it's a positive thing in it. March 24th. Yes, more. Well, today was an overview between last January, when we knew this was coming. We had an eclipse December 10th at 20 Cancer. And so, you know, I think you've seen that. And we have until December 21st. We have peak times in there. And so let us honor them. Let us meet our goals. Let us be at progression where we need to be. That's all I'm asking. So let's walk through this together. You know, I have no idea either, but I'm willing to share, and I'm willing to give any information that I have, and see how we can use this energy. By the way, today is the 22nd. In 2 days, we do have a new moon in Aries. Oh, that's the last thing I wanted to finish with. Okay, next Sunday, we're going to make a point of that. The new moon next on 2 days. Today's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's at 5 in the morning. Whether you do this Monday night, you may be home. You can do it anytime you want on Tuesday or Tuesday. It's the new moon in Aries, and there was an astrologer, Jan Spiller. She has passed now. Great gal and a good astrologer, and she had good. Astrology is a language. And so I don't want to talk too much astrology language, but it is a language. It's the language of the geometry of the universe. That's what we're studying. And we're watching the big picture. And this new moon in Aries is a great time to do a vision board, to do a page of intent of what you want for you, for your growth, and for your positive experience over the next year. The new moon, Aries new moon, is the perfect time to do a treasure map. I've been doing it with my students for 15, 18 years. I'm not there this year. I hope each one of you will do it on your own. So is a positive action this Tuesday. If you don't have magazines and you don't have scissors and you've got pens, color, make a picture. You can use words, you can use pictures. I don't care what you use. But if it's just a list of the things that you would like positively to accomplish, and focus on the only person on this, we come in alone and we leave alone, people. And the only person we're really responsible for is ourselves. So with that, I don't want to preach to you. I just want to thank you for joining us. I'm glad we could do this. I'm glad people asked for us to do this. And when you did, I was willing to respond. I hope this has been helpful. Let's plan on it next week. I'll let Mindy set it up. So, blessings to all of you. Try to find a little peace in your life, would you? And don't get angry. I think